Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The turtle shelf is rough. There is one, because I thought for the longest time that I would not be expanding the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's straight up delusional. It is. Guys, there are certain toy lines that are ever expanding. I know that eventually I'm going to get more Star Trek Playmates. Just looking over here, okay? If I'm being perfectly honest, from the top going down, G.I. Joe is expanding. There's no doubt about that. Below that is the anime shelf. Aside from a couple of Dragon Ball Z figures every now and then, it is safe to say that that shelf probably isn't doing much. Looking over it from there, Star Trek, without a doubt, will be expanding. I will be putting more Playmates Star Trek on the shelf as I go, especially my two primary goals for that shelf. And then, that shelf could be done. There is an argument to be made that once I do what I want to do with that shelf, it's done. I want the Next Generation crew underneath the Enterprise, and I want the original crew underneath the original Enterprise. That's what I want. Going down from there is the Motu shelf, which are 3 different shelves right now. There's a bad guy shelf, a good guy shelf, so like a light side, a dark side, and then an all-encompassing brand new figures just been opened shelf that we've got going on. Those are fine. There's a Marvel shelf, which is, without a doubt, expanding, and is always expanding. So that will be one of those things that I have to deal with as we come across it. Underneath that, currently, is a Motu Origins shelf. And the Motu Origins shelf is... it's a complicated shelf. And we'll talk about that in the video that closes this entire project out. The DC shelf, without a doubt, is expanding all the time. And then there are the random shelves. So there's a there's a random type of barbarian shelf. There's then a naked open shelf, but nowhere near the size that I would need for my Ninja Turtles. There's a Star Wars shelf, which is... it's expanding, but at an incredibly slow rate, so it's more than fine to be on the single-eye shelf. There's a video game-esque shelf, which is really just a Street Fighter shelf, because that's the only thing that I really collect that is straight-up video game action figures, which is fine. That's the Jada Toys collection, and that shelf is more than large enough to be able to handle the Street Fighter 2 cast. I'm not worried about that. Below that is a couple of Motu figures. There's some statues over to the side of that, and so on and so forth. I know I'm just talking, I'm not showing these shelves off yet, but I'm trying to process in my mind what I'm thinking here. I need a shelf for the Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles are ever expanding. I just finished the pickups to get the Super 7 turtles that I've been wanting. My absolute grail turtles, the turtles that mean something to me. These action figures, redone in a modern scale, which we were hoping was going to be these figures. Remember these figures that we talked about, and it didn't turn out to be what we wanted them to be? I think these are fine. They're $13. They don't blow my mind. I've done at least one action set with them where I had them fight Bowser, and they're okay. They're not what I wish. Because Super 7 Ultimates is what I wanted forever. That is the original toy line, upscaled, and modernized. It's perfect. It's exactly what I want. It's exactly what I want. Those are my holy grail, perfect turtles. I don't care. Maybe they're not perfect for you. Maybe they could use better articulation and such. And that's an argument to be had. I've seen some really cool other turtles that I've considered. But the ultimate turtles are the ultimate turtles for me. That's what I want. It's what I've always wanted. It's what I've wanted since I was a little kid, and even when I grew up into an adult, that's what I want. I want these turtles with the same heads they always had, with the same body designs they always had, with the same weapons they always had, with modern articulation at a Masterverse scale. They're perfect. They're perfect. They're exactly what I want. But now I have completed them. I've got the 4 turtles. I need a main shelf. Main shelves, those shelves are for the biggest expanding parts of the collection, which offers the idea that the Dragon Ball Z is not an ever-expanding shelf. It simply is not an ever-expanding shelf. Let's go over the shelves. So that is a Motu shelf. It's not getting touched at all. That is a Motu shelf. It's not getting touched. That is the Motu shelf for the next wave of this coming year. That's a Star Trek shelf. There's no reason to modify it or mess with it. That is the anime shelf. It is pretty much only Dragon Ball Z. It is arguable that this Goku in the very back in the Capsule Corps uniform is one that would leave the collection. Everything else is set to stay in the collection. That could probably move to one of the smaller collection shelves. And then I would get this shelf for Ninja Turtles. Those are G.I. Joes. And I have already preempted the idea that they will expand this entire shelf. I know that they will, and they have plenty of room for expansion. This is the Marvel shelf. We know that it will be expanding extra characters, which I've already taken certain precautions about that, such as this extra shelf right here for things like Fantastic Four, for things like Spider-Man, which I know Spider-Man is one of the things that constantly gets increased. Otherwise, most of this is going to be fine as it is right now. And we haven't reached the critical mass yet where we start considering boxing up certain figures that are really cool that we don't want to let go, but are not so cool that we want to display, but we don't want to lose because they will still work for photography purposes. And there are still guys in the collection that, like him, are not like, they're not staples. They're not necessarily going to stay on the shelf forever. They're fine for what they are, but they don't blow me away, okay? They're not my absolute. This shelf is a little complicated. That is a Motu Origins shelf, which right now is just a wild collection shelf. Because, in all honesty, Origins is one of those things. And I know this is going to ruffle some people's feathers, I'm a Masterverse guy. This is important to me. This is not as important to me. I really like these figures, but these have become figures that I like to do photography with, to talk about, to have, to own, and to play with from time to time when the kids come over and they ask to play with Motu. These are the figures that I will take off the shelf and allow to be played with. There are a couple that I consider to be special characters that I will not just like take downstairs and be like, oh sure, go ahead, play kids. But for the most part, these are toys and they're meant to be toys, and I just kind of let them be played with, and I don't have any problem with that. So they could probably be put in a box, in all honesty, not full-on display pieces, but photography pieces and pack pieces that are used specifically for playtime and photography and not necessarily for the main display. And I would be okay with that. But we're not there yet. This right here is an expanding shelf. I know this, but it slowly expands and I'll figure it out as it goes. Which leaves me decisions. I think I want the turtles to be one of these main shelves back here. Do I, one, finally remove the Pokemon from here? Because this is no longer an expanding shelf. There's only two things left for me to do with the Pokemon shelf pretty much ever. Like ever. Three things. One, replace the Charizard, replace the Squirtle, because I want them to be on par with him. There. That's one item. Two, get Cyndaquil, Quilava, and Typhlosion in this level of quality on the shelf. Okay. Otherwise, this shelf is done, aside from maybe one more possibility. People like Pikachu. I like Pikachu. I love Raichu. Raichu is the thing that I want, period. But these are all stuffed animals for what it's worth. And they could really go anywhere. They don't have to go on this shelf as collection items. They really do not. I can easily mix these in with my wife's stuffed animals and her Pokemon as a bigger collection in my bedroom area, and we would be more than happy to do so, and it would give me a display case, a display shelf specifically for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I think that might be what to do, because it's either that or move these guys onto the shelf where the turtles happen to be. And let's look at that. These shelves have yet to be cleaned because the project focused all on the outside and didn't mess with these shelves. But that's the Ghostbuster shelf, and it is not expanding, and it is not doing anything. It is a finished shelf. It will be unpacked, it will be cleaned, it will be put back basically exactly how it is. That is the Ghostbusters shelf. I'm 1000% happy with it. I don't need anything else from it. This is the Power Ranger shelf. Also, a shelf that is not expanding, not changing, not advancing, not doing anything. That is the Power Ranger shelf, and it is done. It is done. I have my favorite Ranger ever. I have my favorite new modern design. I have the team I grew up with. I have, Zool. Or Vince Clortho, whichever you want to say it is, for reasons. Because he's going to go up there, but I just haven't done that yet. And that's this shelf, and it doesn't need to do anything, so it can always be that size shelf, and we're never going to have a problem with that. And maybe one could argue that it might be time to look into these things moving and opening up that shelf, but I have not decided yet what to do with this, because there's only three things here: a Megazord, a Tigerzord, a Dragonzord. Aside from a Thunder Megazord, and a good one at that, I don't want anything else Power Ranger. I just don't. And that's Godzilla, and I put him with the giant Megazords because I just think that makes sense. And then there's this little shelf right here. That is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That is what it is right now, and it is already due to expand exponentially. Is exponentially a term that's a little big? You could argue I'm over-exaggerating. That would be fair. But at the same time, I have 3 new Ultimate Turtles to add to the shelf. I'm going to get a Casey Jones and an April. I already know that. I'm going to get a Splinter. I already know that. That's 3 expansions right there. I have Jenica coming. That's a 4th right there. Jenica will be unboxed. I have a Shredder from BTS. That's a 5th figure right there. Like, do you see these figures just piling up one after the other, after the other, after the other? I've already named 5. And there's a possibility that I kind of want the BTS April. There's 6 right there. 6. Easily, off the top of my head, that I could easily get in the next 2 months. Because they're not that expensive. Most of the figures that I just mentioned are figures that are pretty much like almost perpetually on sale. I can get these. And especially with all the overtime I'm doing right now, I wouldn't have a whole lot of trouble getting them. Because I can do that, that means that shelf is expanding. We spent an entire year last year and didn't even add one figure to the Dragon Ball Z shelf. Not one. And I think that's going to be fairly normal. Even if I start building the Dragon Ball Z figures, like the Gunpla-esque models, I still don't think it would expand at a rate that would qualify them getting one of the main shelves. Do I replace the Pokemon? Do I move the Dragon Ball Z? That is the question, isn't it? Okay, well, I gutted the anime shelf. I made one decision which I'm not too happy with, and I'll probably be moving them, to be fair. The two Namis came down here. Why keep the Namis? I want to be honest with you. I don't know. I like Nami. Of course. She's a redhead. She's a pirate. She kind of fits my like and desires. Look, I'm not going to apologize for it. I like full-formed women. I like those things right there. I'm a fan of them. I like them, okay? I like redheads. I like bow staff. I like physical warrior types like Red Sonja, okay? I may have a type if we're being fair. Let's be honest, okay? Yeah? Let's be honest, okay? Yeah? Let's be honest about this too. Yeah? See? Look, I have something that appeals to me, okay? I like the red-headed warrior women types. Always have, always will. So, Nami fits something that kind of sticks around. I tend to like her. I don't feel like I want to get rid of them yet. I don't love the idea that they're down here sharing this shelf right now, but there's no assorted anime shelf. The only anime thing that I collect is Dragon Ball Z, and that is it. That is literally it. And I moved the Dragon Ball Z to two different shelves. This one right here, where I plan to kind of put the figures, and I will work on that. I will work on that as it goes, and then I did one more shelf. I did the shelf in the cubby hole over here. And I will, of course, move some things over into here and fill this out and finish this shelf off. Everything in here is a statue, except for Mecha Frieza in there. That's an actual figure. Everything else in this hole right here is a statue. I moved the Power Rangers, rearranged them so they fit like this, and I put the Megazord and the Dragonzord right up there with the collector. Because the top shelf specifically is for large-scale items right now. Like the horses, like the Batwing, like the Batmobile, like certain boxes that are sticking around, who knows for how long, to be fair. Like the Dungeons & Dragons giant monsters and things of that nature. This is what the top shelf is specifically for right now, is for large-scale things like that. So, I figured for right now, they would do just fine right there. So with the Dragon Ball Z in two different places, but not that that necessarily bothers me, to be fair, with the Power Rangers completely rearranged, I can now move these Ninja Turtles off of this shelf, clean that shelf, and then I have that shelf for whatever I would like to put there. I don't know what. Maybe it makes sense to move the Dragon Ball Z that's currently left and doesn't have a place onto that shelf. And then the Dragon Ball Z kind of stays in one spot all with each other. And it makes this, except for the Ghostbusters, a Japanese shelf. And maybe the Ghostbusters can actually come out and be on the shelf where I currently put the second run of Dragon Ball Z. And maybe that makes sense. And this is just a giant Japanese shelf in here covering all kinds of anime and stuff. I think that's my idea. I think I just made my decision. I think in real time, I just made the decision now to move everything. Okay, so this part is underway. So we're starting off. I got these are the platforms from the anniversary turtles that came out, and we did that video on here where we talked about those turtles and how I felt about them. So I put their little parts, their accessory parts up here just because I thought it was like a fun little thing to have up here. And I started with the movie turtles and the original toys. And yes, those movie turtles are the exact same turtles from that video. They are knockoffs. They are fakes. They are cheap versions of the NECA turtles. And I know how people feel about them. I, for one, don't hate them. I think they're solid figures. And I think you would be hard-pressed, unless you're being untruthful to yourself, to say that they're bad figures. I mean, look at them. They look like the movie turtles. If you have the original versions and you are very happy with them, I see no reason for you not to be happy with them, and I see no reason for you to see a superior quality, because I'm sure that that exists. But for myself, right here, looking at them on the shelf, I can't complain. And that is the entire current shelf right here. We have the Sin City Turtles, as I like to call them, which we've already covered and we've talked about on the channel. I have back there the 2013 Turtles, which is actually my favorite run cartoon ever done. That's my favorite cartoon run of all the history of all the Turtles. I think it was done better than any other one ever. We have the movie Turtles and the original Turtles here front and center. We have the anniversary Turtles right here. Fantastic. We got Shredder and a bunch of foot soldiers back there. That is the Ultimates Super 7 Shredder. And that is the Ultimates Leonardo, leaving space for the Ultimates team, which I will be putting up there very, very soon, which run across. That is the entire shelf so far, with many more turtles to come. I am absolutely sure of it, which is the reason we decided to cut them out their own main shelf, because let's be honest, Turtles is a thing that has lasted since my childhood and has never gone away, and is a huge property, an undying property, a mega property, and it's not going to change. But that means that now this right here has to be moved so the Ghostbusters can occupy that space. And there's that. It's a good thing that nothing is being added to the Ghostbusters shelf in any foreseeable future, because it's done. But I've got everything that I ever feel that I want from a Ghostbusters shelf and more. This is a what stays, what goes. So let's be honest about something real quick. The Legos, they don't mean anything to me. Let me move my light here. Those Legos, I got them a long time ago. I made them. It was neat to be able to make them. They would be the first thing gone if ever I had to get anything off of this shelf. Zool is awesome. Those two back there, both Gozer and Dana, they don't really mean anything to me toy-wise. It's just kind of neat that they have them, that I have them. Stay Puffed is cool. Slimer is, of course, cool. The original movie Ghostbusters back there, and the real Ghostbusters right there. And then I'll put the 4 ghosts in front of them, and that'll be it. That is that shelf, and that shelf is done, and nothing is going to be added to that shelf probably ever. in all honesty. It would take something very specific to add another item to that shelf. And maybe it would be something like, if I could get a Paul Rudd or something like that. Maybe the new Ghostbusters, but I don't know. I don't have any necessarily like nostalgic attachment to them or anything, so I would be very surprised. Let's finish moving the anime. And that's that. So now I have a Dragon Ball Z shelf, a Dragon Ball Z shelf, a Ranger shelf, and a Nami shelf. I don't know what is going to become of this bottom shelf. For right now, there's 2 anime figures on it. I doubt that I will be getting enough anime figures to do anything else with that shelf, realistically, but that space is not going to be occupied by just 2 Namis. We will figure it out as the need arises. I just don't know what so far. And with that, this project might be done. I think it's time to get back to opening figures. I think I've sorted the entire collection. I've gotten rid of what needs to go. I think it's done. I sorted the top shelves. I set aside, I set up a separate Barbarian shelf. We've now moved the Ghostbusters into a small permanent location that makes sense for them. Wonder Woman got her own shelf. Star Wars has its own tiny shelf in here. There's still 1, 2, 3, 4 open shelves that can be occupied with stuff. There's a lot of open space for G.I. Joe. There's a lot of open space for Masters of the Universe. There's a decent enough open space for Marvel Legends. There's still a good deal of open space for larger stuff like vehicles and whatnot. Not that I pick up vehicles and whatnot very often, but it's open. It's there. I think we have completed this project. We have completed the What Stays, What Goes 2024. It is now time to move on to opening new stuff. With a footnote. While I was going through all that stuff, kept all the Ghostbusters. None of the Ninja Turtles are leaving the shelf. I tend to like all the Ghostbusters. I like all the Ninja Turtles that I currently have and everything like that. For right now, that Goku that I mentioned, he's going to stay even though he's very much on the docket to be removed. But one guy has been removed. Rather, he's up for replacement. My classic Jungle Recondo, I took him off the shelf. It really bothers me that his upper body is in the condition that it's in. I mean, he wobbles bad. Like, he just wobbles really, really bad. It drives me crazy. I really don't like it. And if he's going to stay in the collection, which I want him to be in the collection, I want the classic Jungle Recondo, I'm going to have to roll the dice and buy another one. That is what it is. The next time I do a run for G.I. Joes, I may have to buy another one. I took him off and I bagged him, but I didn't really check to see if he's accessible easily. I'll run an internet search to see if he's accessible easily, if I can replace him without too much of a hassle. If he is, then I'm not worried about it. If he's not, then I'll unbag him and I'll put him up there with basically a footnote that he's a grayscale character right now that he needs to be replaced. Otherwise, that's it. We are ready to start 2025's collecting. And I already know the very first thing that I will be unboxing and adding to the shelf. So, I'll see you guys later.